Okay, hello, my name is Matthew. I'm participating in Victober. It's something on BookTube where you read Victorian novels in the month of October. And I just finished The Mill and the Floss by George Eliot. I just finished it a few minutes ago. Um, and I'm just going to start by saying that the ending is disappointing. Andy, come on. I'm trying to record. Move it. The ending was quite bad. I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but I loved so much of the book. I thought it was terrific, and the way it ended was not good. Anyway, the story is about a family that owns a mill, and it's the Tulliver family. It's Mr. Tulliver and Mrs. Tulliver, and they have two children, an older son, Tom, and the younger daughter, Maggie. And then they have like their relations. And to me, one of the best parts of Hey Daphne, one of the best parts of George Eliot is her ability to um, articulate the specific relationships between all of the family members and people that are outside of the family. And with that, you really understand the motivations of all of the characters. Almost all of them are pretty unlikable. They're they're not very good people. They're all uneducated, and there's a lot of kind of like snitty conversations, gossipy, especially the adults when the aunts and uncles come over. There's a lot of kind of like nagging, harping conversations. But with the nuclear family, anyway, it's so great that you understand where they're all coming from. So a lot of the dilemma comes for me as a reader was through all of the actions that are happening in the book, which I'll kind of get into. No one's like 100% right or 100% wrong. If a character does something that seems disagreeable, George Eliot explains their point of view, and you can kind of understand where they're coming from. And I think she's really good at that. So, Mr. Tulliver wants to send his son Tom to be to a school to become educated. Tom is quite a severe older brother. He has a code of ethics that goes throughout the whole novel, which makes him quite obstinate. He's just very bullheaded. Maggie is also she also is seeking for an education. She wants to be she wants a better life, and one of her main character traits, at least that you get from the very beginning, is her want of approval, especially from her family and especially from Tom. And Tom ends up going to school, but while all this is going on, the mill becomes in jeopardy from another um, family in town, um, and that's a major plot element of the book. Is the rivalry between Mr. Tulliver and Waken, I think, or Wakeham, the Wakeham family. Um, but it's great. So Maggie like idolizes Tom, and as a big brother, and she's seeing him as the big brother. He's big and strong and smart. Um, he's pretty cruel to her, but she feels like if she gives enough of herself, he'll um, at least show affection. But to me, one of the interesting parts of the book is that Tom finally goes to school, and now you see Tom um, outside of Maggie's perception, and it was just interesting to find that he wasn't as smart as he thought that he was. He had difficulty in school. Um, he always was. Throughout the whole novel, he was a hard worker and everything. But it was great to seeing like the perspective shifts. The Wakeham family has a son who's a hunchback, and his name is Philip. It was kind of curious to me because I had just finished Of Human Bondage. The main character in Of Human Bondage is also named Philip, and both Philip in Of Human Bondage has a deformity. He has a club foot. Philip in Mill on the Floss also has a deformity, has a hunchback. And I don't know if it was a coincidence or not. I mean, it seemed kind of strange to me. There's not too many characters named Philip. Andy. One of the things that really kept my interest throughout the book is how great George Eliot is with kind of zooming in and out of like a very small scale, the problems of sort of an insignificant, uneducated farming family, or they have a mill, but and how she's able to extrapolate that into much larger, bigger questions, and she's able to shift back and forth. And I'm gonna kind of just go through some passages that I've marked that I liked. But as far as it goes, like there's a whole chapter of like quibbling and arguing. There's a lot of that, and then the last line, she relates how people are more likely to argue and gossip, to argue when there's other people that you can gossip with about the argument. And she relates that to war. And she says, war, like other dramatic spectacles, might possibly cease for want of a public, which I loved. And I just loved how she was able to kind of recontextualize like a small episode into something that is on a much grander scale. Let's see. Why did I bookmark that? So the Tulliver family ends up losing the mill to the Wakeham's, and so many of the characters in this book reminded me of chess players who think they're better at chess than they really are, and can sit there and look at all the different people around them, or look at their opponent, and feel like they understand 5 moves ahead, 6 moves ahead, and they actually don't. Um, so Mr. Tolliver's like losing his form, and he's thinking like, well, I have this relation over here, and I know this person, and they'll lend me this money, and so and so owes me this, and this person will find it advantageous for me to keep the mill, and you have this like whole episode of Mr. Tolliver like scrambling to keep the mill above water, and it all comes crashing down. He realizes that he's losing everything, and he like falls off his horse and goes bedridden. Um, but I just loved him rationalizing how he was like gonna avoid this like imminent doom. Um, Probably my favorite my favorite part of the whole book is book 4. I feel like George Eliot like really gets into her stride. The language becomes just so strong, and part of it is brutal, and her language is. Meanwhile, her language is also still quite beautiful. What did she say? But these dead, tinted, hollow-eyed, angular skeletons of villages. She's talking about these like anonymous little villages that you see on the river. um, on the Rhone oppress me with their feelings, with their feeling that human life, very much of it, is a narrow, ugly, groveling existence, which even calamity does not elevate, but rather tends to exhibit in all its bare vulgarity of conception. And I have a cruel conviction that the lives these ruins are the traces of, or part of a gross sum of obscure vitality that will be swept into the same oblivion with the generations of ants and beavers. It's great. And the last part that I really liked about the book is there's a whole romantic interest between Maggie and the hunchback Philip. And Maggie decides that since the family's gone into ruin, that she no longer needs to seek an education. Philip is really pushing her to borrow books and read, and she doesn't want to do it. And she says that she's resigning herself, and he instead says that she's stupefying herself. And he says, stupefaction is not resignation, and it is stupefaction to remain in ignorance, to shut up all avenues by which the life of your fellow men might become known to you, which I love. I mean, it really sums up the importance and beauty of reading. I loved it. I loved this book. I feel like this is sort of a scattershot review. The ending just threw me. And it, like at some point it just started getting worse. The last 100 pages started becoming trying, and then the very end. Anyway, I'll end there. This is my first book for Victober. Please leave some comments if you have any, or questions. If you have questions, I'll try to answer them. And thank you for watching.